Hi guys, welcome to Twin Perspective. I'm Joe, and tonight I'm going to be breaking down episode 1 and episode 2 of Maniac, which is a limited series on Netflix starring Emma Stone and Jonah Hill. It's 10 episodes, and I'm going to be breaking down episode 1 and 2, a recap, and full spoilers. I'm going to be explaining what's happening, how it's confusing, and then my analysis of it. I've watched a bunch of reviews and I've seen some behind the scenes stuff, and I've watched the series 3 times now because I really enjoy it. I think it's a beautiful thing. Might be for a thinking person, and maybe really smart thinking people might think that it's kind of slow and kind of simple, and I enjoyed that it wasn't overbearing. There's lots of neat things to pick up. Not all of them are intricate to understanding what's going on, though. So I did a shorter video reviewing Maniac. It was spoiler free, and you can check out my channel to find that one. This one's going to be more in depth. I love this show, and I don't know very many people who watched it. I don't have a chance to talk about it. And it is a lot like Twin Peaks, where there's a lot to talk about and ponder and contemplate. And to not have anybody to talk to about it is driving me nuts. So if you guys have seen it and you want to hear somebody talk about it, I'm about to. If you haven't seen it, then you're going to hear the whole story pretty much from me, because I really want to talk about it, and here we go. I'm going to talk about the first 2 episodes. The first one basically breaks down Owen, who's played by Jonah Hill. And the second episode breaks down Annie, who's played by Emma Stone. So we have Owen and Annie. They don't know each other. They meet at the drug trial. There's a pharmaceutical drug trial that's going on, and they both volunteer for it. Episode 1 and 2 kind of gives you a grounding for these 2 main characters and how they found themselves at this trial. The first episode is called The Chosen One. It begins with a monologue by Justin Theroux. We don't see him, but he's narrating. And he's breaking down this theory of his. And it is basically explaining what the series is about. So I wrote down a little bit of it. He's talking about the collisions of heavenly bodies. He's talking about the beginning of life. He starts with, okay, first there's an amoeba, and wait a minute, we got to go further back than that. I'm forgetting too many connections. We start with the beginning of the universe. So it's about connections. It's about how these collisions of the heavenly bodies, and also here on Earth with the amoeba and the photosynthesis, and next thing you know, all the plants and oxygen, and then all the animals are created, and yada yada. Okay, but it's all about connections. Now this is the part that I like the best that he was saying. That's why I wrote it down. I'm gonna read it to you because it's important. It's what the show's about. These connections, these collisions. These forces of nature, when they converge, be they astronomical collisions, biological unions, demonstrate the infinite potential of our connections. This truth also extends to the human heart. Hypothesis: all souls are on a quest to connect. Corollary: our minds have no awareness of this quest. All the worlds that almost were matter just as much as the world we're in. Corollary: these hidden worlds cause us great pain. Camaraderie, communion, family, friendship, love, what have you. We're lost without connection. It's quite terrible to be alone, put simply. And he states that his goal is to eradicate all unnecessary and inefficient forms of human pain. Forever, we must evolve past our suffering. So, the whole time he's narrating this, we see Annie, who's played by Emma Stone. She's trying to buy a pack of cigarettes, but the place won't use the ad buddy system. So she has to go acquire some money and then come back and buy the smokes. The guy behind the counter says he doesn't trust the ad buddy because they record everything they say. Now, this world is strange. It is in modern times. It's just a different realization of our life. It's styled like the 80s. A lot of people are saying it's like if you were living in the 80s and you made a film about the future, that's what this show looks like. And it is 80s themed, but it's not the 80s. And they do specify what time we're in. It's not far off in the future. It's pretty much present day. It's just a different world where a lot of what we have already is exaggerated in this world. So take, for instance, this ad buddy system. Normally you watch TV and you see a commercial. You have to sit through the commercial. Meanwhile, the network that's airing the television show that's airing that commercial is the one that got paid by the advertiser. Next, you go to social media where it's Facebook, and they sell your information. Everybody gets your information online. And next thing you know, ads are specific to you. So they're actually trying to get directly to you. They know what you want, and they're going to try to advertise to you. Yet Facebook gets all the money. Well, here in this world, AdBuddy will buy stuff for you. If you need to go somewhere and you can't afford a bus ticket, they'll pay for the bus ticket. You just got to sit there and let them try to sell you stuff the whole time, which is a different realization of what we go through anyway. Ironically, this kind of human connection is one of the only human connections we get. And it's probably, well, you can sell something to somebody easier if another person's sitting there talking to you about it. But in this world, everybody's lonely, everybody's disconnected, and we know that feeling with social media and everything now. It's just an exaggeration. It's got a lot of people that watched it confused. A lot of people that watched this show thought it was good, or they thought it was okay. But I think it's great. It's my favorite thing since Twin Peaks Season 3. It's the only television show that I've covered on this channel since I started it. And I started this channel to cover Twin Peaks Season 3. And I've been doing other stuff since then, but this show was worthy of me talking about it. So this world is strange, and people think it's a near future, but it's, like I say, it's not. It's like a Terry Gilliam exaggeration, and I was right there with it from the very beginning. They also have this service called Friend Proxy, where you can set up dates to go somewhere and have someone meet you there, and they pretend they're your friend because you're so lonely, you need that connection, but you don't want to be involved with anybody on a personal level all the time. So you just kind of hire a friend for a day. Friend Proxy. My God. Anyway, so let's get this started with the first character, Owen, Jonah Hill. We meet Owen. He is in a building called Milgram Enterprises, his family's company. Owen Milgram is his name. He's in the family building. He's getting prepped for a trial. He is the key witness. Apparently, Owen's brother Jed is on trial. We don't find out why till the last episode. But Jed is on trial, and Owen is expected to testify and to say that Jed was with him, so he couldn't have done whatever it is they're accusing him of doing. Now, Owen is a little reluctant because Owen's a good guy and he wants to tell the truth, and he's diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, so he has an issue with reality, what's real and what's not to begin with. He doesn't need somebody telling him to lie, okay? But he's willing to do it. He's the black sheep of the family. Apparently 10 years prior, Owen had had an episode which required treatment. He was put in a facility. That's where he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And they're prepping him real hard for this trial because they know cross-examination is going to bring this stuff up. And the fake lawyer, the lawyer for the family who's pretending to cross-examine him brings this up, and Owen's like, really, Dad? They're going to go like that? And his dad's like, hey, they're going to do what they have to do. The one thing they want to make certain is that Owen doesn't bring up that part of his diagnosis when he was in the hospital. He had admitted to seeing someone who wasn't there, and that person looked like his brother. Now, if he's seeing his brother and his brother's not actually there, then he's the worst witness to have. But the family expects him to do it. The family expects him to just say no, that's not happening, that never happened, or it doesn't happen now, to avoid that question altogether. Now, the whole time Owen's getting prepped by his family's lawyers, Owen has a Rubik's Cube under the table he's playing with. Owen is a creature of pattern, doesn't want to be. If you or someone you know is diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, then you know what happens. And a lot of these situations, it was handled very well by the creators, and Jonah Hill did a great job. And I understood a lot of it from my own experience. And he sees patterns. It convinces him that certain things are real. Other people don't see it, the patterns, the way he sees it. And he feels like he's an outcast. Part of him doesn't want to pay attention to these patterns at all. So after he's gotten prepped, he's sitting on a bench outside next to the water, looking at this statue of extra liberty. And he's feeding birds. And Grimson shows up. Grimson is his imaginary brother. Guy looks just like Jed, but he has a mustache. And when Grimson shows up, Grimson always has information for him. This time, Grimson says, Owen, you're going to save the world. You need to find a contact. She's going to be your handler. You're going to know who she is when you see her, trust me. But you got to do this. The pattern is the pattern. And when he walks away, he says, don't fuck this up. Owen's, the whole time, he's like, I don't want the pattern, I don't want the pattern, I don't want the pattern. When Owen gets stressed out, he begins to have a hallucination from his condition. Before, when he was getting cross-examined, this glass of water started shaking on the table. Then later, the question is asked, do you know what's real and what isn't? And Owen looks at the glass and it's sitting still, and he says 100%. So Grimson walks away from the bench and the ground starts shaking. Owen catches himself for a minute. And then the seeds that he's been feeding the birds to start popping into popcorn. So Owen tries to get home. He can't buy a subway ticket. They say his funds are depleted. They ask, would you like to use Ad Buddy? So he says yes. And the Ad Buddy shows up. And so the subway ride, the Ad Buddy is giving him the ads that are specified to him. And Ad Buddy knows everything about you. So he's like, Owen, says here that you spend 80-something% of your salary on your apartment. Is that true? Golly. It's like, well, you could step into one of these, I forget what they call it, where what happens is a woman loses her husband. You can step in and take the husband's place until the woman gets back on her feet. He suggests that to him. You can make money doing it. Like pretend to be somebody else's family for a little while. Then he says, I see you had a mental breakdown. There's a pharmaceutical trial at Neverdyne. That's what it's called. Yeah, Neverdyne Pharmaceutical Biotech. You can join this drug trial, make some money. It might cure you. Okay, so Owen gets home. His little bitty apartment. He's got a tape on of a former session that he had with a therapist, where the therapist is telling him these things. Owen's repeating them. And he's supposed to put this tape on anytime he feels off. So the tape's playing, and he's also reading a self-help book by a woman named Dr. Greta Manley, and it's a Sally Fields picture. And we saw a billboard earlier of Sally Field in one of her books. So apparently she writes a lot of self-help books. So we see that Owen is trying. He's got the therapy on. He's reading the self-help book, but he's not taking his medicine. He's flicking them into plants in his house. So he wants to conquer this without the medication. He gets a buzz from outside his apartment complex. It's a guy with a package from Neverdeen Pharmaceutical. He wants to bring it up to him. So Owen buzzes him in, and this guy runs to the front door, drops it off, knocks real fast, and runs off. And if you're paranoid schizophrenic, that would freak you the fuck out. It's definitely part of a pattern. Because as soon as he opens up the door and grabs his package and realizes it's from Neverdeen Pharmaceutical and Biotech, the phone rings. He answers it, and it's Neverdeen Pharmaceutical Biotech. Yeah, Owen, you're perfect for our hero candidacy, and we should expect to see you here on Monday. And he's like, well, what is a hero candidate? And she tells him, you're going to do this drug trial, and you're going to help, and it's going to help people with all sorts of problems. And she lists a bunch of them, and then she says, popcorn problems. And Owen says, did you say popcorn problems? And she says, yeah, that's right, prostate problems. So Owen heard popcorn problems, which reminded him of the popcorn popping, which reminded him of Grimson, giving him this follow the pattern suggestion. So at this point, Owen's pretty convinced, he finds out he's furloughed from his job. He's going to have to do something for money. He's really stressed out about this trial. So he goes to his family's house. He sits there. You get to meet Jed. And Jed tells a story about, in front of the whole family, extended family too. It's a huge party. He tells this story about how when Owen was 9, Owen had a hawk. And the hawk got loose and ate Jed's gerbil. And the little girl there asked, well, what happened to the hawk? And Jed said, well, we set it free. And he had this look on his face that he killed the hawk. And that's why Owen hates his ass. Now, the reason why Owen had a hawk was because Owen was 9, and he found the hawk in the park, and the hawk had a broken wing, and he took the hawk in his room, and he took care of it for 2 to 3 months until the hawk was strong enough to fly into Jed's room and eat his gerbil. Jed's gerbil's name was Ernie. So you get the feeling, Jed's an awful person. Embarrassing his brother like that, when his brother has a condition. Right before dinner, Owen was with Jed's fiance, Adeline, and they were talking kind of off from everybody else. And Adeline was treating Owen like a real person. Seems like the only person in this entire environment who's treating Owen decently. So Owen has a connection with her. I don't think Owen's in love with her or anything like that. But Owen does start to talk about, we should just steal Jed's money, move somewhere in the middle of nowhere, assume new identities, just start over. And she's like, so after supper, right? She's thinking about it too. And she says, you're messing with me, huh? And Owen says, I got you. Yep, I'm messing with you. I don't think Owen was. I think he was feeling her out, and she was kind of accepting there for a second. Of course, she's engaged to Jed. The family seems to have money, and they seem to have power. So that's why it's important that Owen testify and get Jed off for whatever the hell he did. They all say Jed's innocent. Jed says he's innocent. Owen's giving him a gift. The dad's actually willing to pay for a house for Owen, but Owen wants to live on his own. He doesn't want to live next to them. He doesn't want to have anything to do with his family. While Owen was talking to Adeline. They were looking at this big-ass oil painting on the wall in the family's house. It's got the entire family painted in there except for Owen. Off to the side, a little bitty picture of Owen, photograph of Owen, next to this huge family portrait. Owen was saying, yeah, they're going to paint me in eventually, but the painter's on a sabbatical or whatever, and taking 6 months in Nepal to study light or something like that. Anyway, yeah, his family has power, they have money, but Owen doesn't want to have anything to do with him. And Owen's being put upon to lie like this. He has an issue with lies. He's a paranoid schizophrenic, of course he does. When he's trying to leave the party, they're about to play Balderdash, which is a game where you have to lie in the game. And the mother's like, come on, Owen, you love Balderdash. He says, no, I don't love Balderdash. I have a fundamental issue with Balderdash. And then there's Jed. Oh, come on, you love Balderdash. It's like, I don't fucking love Balderdash. It's full of shit, all right? The family's like, whoa, was he off his meds? Dad's like, what's money problems or something? But he tells his dad he's got a new job and he's going to be out of town for a few days. He'll be back in town. Owen says, I'll be back in town before the trial, don't worry. But if you try to get a hold of me, you won't be able to because I'm going to be out of town. It's important. Somebody invented a new ham. So the dad's cool with that. Dad was walking a dog and the dog took a shit on the sidewalk and there was this little robot that came by, sanitation robot that cleaned up the poo. So that's how Owen gets to the drug trial. He decides to follow the signs. It seems as though he needs to go to this drug trial. Now, while he's walking around town, he keeps noticing these ads. And in the ads, we see Emma Stone's face. A couple of ads, and he sees it. When he gets to the pharmaceutical building, he sees Emma Stone in there. Her name's Annie. He sees her in there. She's causing a fuss, pissed off about something, but she eventually sits down. And Owen approaches her and says, hey, have you lost your husband recently? And she's like, no. He's staring at her. She's like, quit staring at me. He's like, tries to talk to her again. She's like, leave me the fuck alone. I got a gun. I will fucking kill you. Leave me alone. They call everybody that's supposed to be in that trial to get up and go in line. And she gets up and runs in the front of the line. And Owen's still sitting there, and Grimson appears one more time and says, the pattern is the pattern. It got you this far. You need to make contact. So Owen gets in line and literally kind of touches her on the back. She looks back and she's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then they go inside where the trial's about to begin. Okay, so that's the first episode. You get to meet Owen. Now, second episode, the first episode was called The Chosen One. Owen is the chosen one, as long as he wants to believe in what Grimson's telling him, which part of him wants to live a normal life and not have any dealings with these patterns or fantasies anymore. And part of him, he really wants to know what's real and what isn't. And part of him believes that this is real because it just keeps popping up. Everything's connecting. So, at one point, his dad tells him, his dad's played by Gabriel Byrne, so Jonah Hill's Owen, and his dad's played by Gabriel Byrne. His brother's played by, Jed is played by Billy Magnuson. Okay, so, second episode is called Windmills, and we meet Annie, Emma Stone. She is, before the second episode, I got to tell you about the screening test. When Owen showed up, he had to do a screening test before they would allow him to get into the trial. And the screening test was basically images that he had to look at. And he had to say what his emotions were. And he was being very honest with them. They showed a picture of a family, and he said suffocated. Okay. They showed a picture of a hawk, and he said justice. And then he wondered if these images were specific to him. Continuing to make a pattern, make connections. She says no, and then she says, okay, so there's one final question, and I need you to draw your attention to me while I ask you this final question. She doesn't say anything. About 10 seconds goes by, and Owen says, are you going to ask it? And then a little green light blinks, bing, and she says, very good, your defense mechanisms are fungible. You've been accepted. Fungible meaning they can be worked on, they can be manipulated, they can change, you can do something with them. So basically, he was being honest through the whole process, screening process, and he had a defense mechanism. He didn't wait around to see what was going to happen. He questioned her and said, are you going to ask me the question? Which means he identifies, he exhibits these defense mechanisms, and so they're going to be able to use that in the study. You have to be honest, or the study's not going to work. Okay. Second episode, Windmills. We meet Annie. When we first meet Annie, the first thing she does is she crushes up a pill. It's the last one in the jar she has, and pill bottle, and she says, you're the last one, and after that, fuck you. She crunches it up and she snorts it. Then she lays down and goes to sleep for a long time. There's a simulation where all the roommates are moving really fast. The whole day's going by, and she's just laying on the couch. None of them's paying attention to her because apparently she does this all the time. They're used to her passed out on the couch. Whatever drug she took made her sleep, it seems like. And when she wakes up, she's got a tear running down her face. She wakes up, and then she decides, okay, that's it. I'm going to be sober now. She makes a paper picture of a dog that's 7 years old, been missing for 7 years, and she's got an artist rendering of what the dog may look like today. And they've got little tabs at the bottom of the page with her number on it. And she's going around taping these things up around town. She's looking for a dog that's been missing for 7 years. Okay. Then she's eating noodles, and she's got an ad buddy there trying to sell her shit. And she asked the ad buddy if the ad buddy system would work, if they would pay for a bus ticket for her to go to Salt Lake City, if they would pay for hotel and meals, and then pay for the bus ticket back. Would that be possible? The girl didn't really know. She had a name tag on, though, and there was a big A on it. Annie noticed that A, and I was kind of telling her, you're addicted to this drug. No matter what you do, you're going to come back to it. But she does. She decides to go to the bus station. She's going to go to Salt Lake City. She goes to her dad's house to get money. She can't get in the safe. She's looking for her dad. Her dad's in a pod in the backyard. The pod in the backyard, barely big enough for a person to get in it. It's called a void. And her dad's in there, and she sits down outside. Your yard looks like shit. And she says, look, I'm going to go to Salt Lake City and see Annie. That's her sister. And she says, what's the combination? Did you change it? He says, yeah, I changed it to your birthday. I couldn't stand remembering your mother every time I used the safe. So she says, I'm going to borrow some money for the bus ticket. She wants to make sure he gets out and eats. He's always in that thing. She goes in the safe. She takes all the money. And there's a gun in there, too. Don't know if she took the gun or not. Kind of makes you wonder if the dad's suicidal. This girl's depressed. She ends up going to the bus station. All of the lettering that tells you the departure times and stuff start to flicker, and it forms a letter A. And she decides, yeah, I'm not going. If she would have taken this trip, it would have been very therapeutic for her. And we learned that later, but she doesn't take the trip. She decides she wants to find this A pill again. That's what she took, an A pill. She goes to her source, this kid. It was a one-time thing. This kid's father works with a pharmaceutical company, and he stole the pills, and she did them all. There are no more pills to steal. The dad freaked out when he couldn't find the pills. So he says, there's no way I can get you more. And she says, is there any way that somebody can get their hands on that A pill? He says, yeah, you can sign up for a study, a drug study. You have to pass a screening test, but you could do that. If that pill's a success, it's going to make my dad billions of dollars. So, yeah. She's like, well, what's the name of the intake director? He said, I can't give you that information. She said, I'll give you $100. So he tells her the name. Now, the whole time she's having this conversation with this kid. This kid's playing chess with a blue koala. It's like a robot that hangs out at the park and will play chess with you. It's a smart ass, too. It wins the chess match and says, what's yours is mine now, bitch. It's a $100 bet. So anyway, Annie gives him $100, and that's why he takes the money, because he's got to pay the koala bear. Koala bear says, I'm putting this in the eucalyptus fund. So Annie's got the name of the intake director now. So Annie goes to this place, and it's called Doc Stop. Now, this is a place where you go, and if you pay them $200, $300 up front, they'll find information about anybody you want. So she pays $300, and the guy starts going through the computer, and he has the woman's name, and he says, oh, she paid a place to swipe her information clean. So if you want this woman's information, I got to bypass that. So that means you have to pay me more than she paid that place, which is a piece of shit place because he can still get the information even though they supposedly wiped it. And she pays a couple of $100 more. And he goes into the computer and he starts listing off things about the woman, her name. You know, she's got a really good job now. It's probably why she wiped her record clean, so she can get this good job. She's got a daughter who's in college. And she's a gambling addict, and she was arrested for some petty thing early in her life. She also uses friend proxy. And Annie said, she uses friend proxy? Does she have an appointment anytime soon? And he says, oh, interception. So apparently he's going to get whoever's supposed to meet her at this friend proxy date. He's going to take that person out and put Annie in. And that's how Annie's going to be able to approach the intake director and try to convince her to let her into the drug trial. Now the guy says, you know, she has a daughter, we can threaten to kidnap her. It always works. No, I don't want to hurt her. She says, I don't want to hurt her. I just want to talk to her and get in the trial. It's so funny because meanwhile, there's a little woman that shows up. She's got a huge garbage bag and it's full of shredded paper. And she lets herself into the back. And when the door opens, she's setting the garbage bag down, and you see a bunch of workers in there, and they're taking these strips of paper and they're putting them together. So that's how they find all the dirt that they can find on just about anybody, whatever they can find online. But they're also doing this shit. It was fucking funny. You have to watch it a few times to pick up stuff like that, but great shit. So anyway, she's got the woman's name, and she meets the woman for this friend proxy date. And the woman doesn't like the way Annie's pretending to be her friend. She says, you must be new at this. And she's thinking about complaining to the service. And Annie just goes off on her. No, I took the friend proxy's date. I'm here to threaten you, to tell you that I'm going to blackmail the shit out of you. And then Annie notices there's people there. There's a little girl and her sister there. And then she says, never mind, I'm sorry, forget about it. And she walks away. So Annie goes sit down next to this pond. And the woman goes and seeks her out. The woman's so lonely for her friend, she decides, yeah, I'm still going to have a conversation. She wants to know what the blackmailing comment was all about. But I think she really wants to connect with someone. So she sits down next to her, and she's really nice to her. And you know, why do you want to do this? You know, Annie said, look, I was threatening you because I want to get in that drug trial. And the reason why she wants to get in is because she's addicted to the drug. And the woman says, no, she wasn't really concerned that she wants to be in the trial because she's addicted to drugs. She says, I want to know the why. Why are you addicted to drugs in the first place? And she said she had a hard time with her sister, and they're separated, and she wants to make a connect. You know, she turns to this drug. It helps her feel better. And what's wrong with that? She should be able to take a drug if she's not hurting anybody, if it makes her feel better. And the woman says, well, why don't you just reconnect with your sister? And she says, I can't. You know, we find out later her sister's dead. But so that's the conversation they have, and the woman agrees to get her at least to the screening part of it. So Annie's taking her screening test at the pharmaceutical place before Owen, and she's giving all the answers to the images, what she thinks they want to hear. She's lying the whole time. She's good at lying. She lies about all of it, and then when the final test comes where the woman says, pay attention to me, I'm going to ask you this final question, and then she doesn't say anything. Annie doesn't say anything. And then the red light blinks. Beep. And the woman says, I'm sorry, but you're not, go sit outside and someone will talk to you soon. And she's like, what, I didn't make it? What do you mean? And the woman's like, I'm sorry. This isn't about honesty. This is about defense mechanisms. And Annie says, I don't have any fucking defense mechanisms. So basically, she failed the test because the only way the project's going to work is if you're honest and you have defense mechanisms. She's lying about everything. She's covering everything up. And there's no way the trial's going to work. You have to at least acknowledge that you have these defense mechanisms for it to work. And we find out later through the process, the computer recognizes that. And if you're not honest, then the computer can't make an honest evaluation. So Annie's pissed. And she goes and finds the woman. The woman's out there next to some bosses and a bunch of people in the lobby, and she's being as quiet as possible. But she's telling the woman, look, you got to get me in this trial. You said I was going to be in a trial. I got you the screening test as far as it's going to go. She gets to the side and said, look, I know you have a daughter. Name on, say, going to Hunter College, and I have a friend with a van, and he knows exactly what to do if anything happens to me. Now, look, you're never going to see your daughter again unless you get in this trial. So the woman pulls a few strings, and she gets somebody who's in the trial to upgrade to another trial. And now Annie's in. She's manipulated her way to get in. So that's when Owen approaches her, and they have their little conversation. But we're seeing it through Annie's point of view, and they're both led into the study. So everyone's getting prepped to what they got to do. There's this commons room, and everyone has a pod. Everyone has a lanyard with a number on it. Owen's number is 1, and Annie's number is 9. They are part of the odds. There are 12 subjects altogether, the evens and the odds. They're going to do things in sync, alternate. And so they watch an introduction video about the process. And in the video, it's a very cheesy 80s video, very awesome 80s effects in it. And it's featuring Dr. Morimoto and Dr. James Manilray. Manilray is played by Justin Theroux. and Dr. Morimoto is played by Roma Kanda. So they're explaining how the process is going to work. There's 3 pills, the A pill, the B pill, and the C pill. And we have this supercomputer. And the computer talks. It says, you're going to be born again, just not as a baby. And they start explaining the process. The A pill brings up your worst memory. Whatever it is that all of this depression stems from, the worst event in your life. That's what you experience with the A pill. Now, while hooked up to the computer recognizes this, and the computer is able to generate the processes for the next 2 pills. The second pill, the B pill, is the behavioral part, where you're going to be able to figure out your blind spots and all your defense mechanisms through the scenarios that the experiences. The B pill pretty much dreams sequences, and you have to recognize your blind spots, your defense, and the computer will do it for you while you're trying to go through this process, and then sets up the ultimate C pill experience, which is confrontation and acceptance, where the computer will set up the simulation where you get to confront the source of your pain and accept it, and then when you're done with the C pill, you're cured. They can fix the mind. The video is so fucking funny. So they're about to begin the trial. The odds are going to take the A pill and go under. And Annie's been abusing the A pill. We know this. And right before the trial starts, Dr. Morimoto is reading poetry to the computer. The computer, they call the computer Gertie. It's Grta. They call her Gertie. He's reading poetry to her. And then she even comments, "Oh, I loved it. It was beautiful. Okay, I'm about to go in their minds again. I'll talk to you later," So something weird going on there. So then they start the experiment. Everybody, the odd numbered people, take the A pill, and then they fall asleep hooked up to the computer. And we get the perspective of Annie. And we get to see what it is, why she's so addicted to this A pill. She is with her sister on the road. The first image you have is of them outside of a gas station. And there's a windmill there next to the marquee. Now, there's something written on the marquee, and it's two different things. And if you research it enough, I think one part's from Don Quixote and another part I forget. But the windmill's definitely from Don Quixote. He imagined windmills to be giants, and he fought them. And so the image of the windmill is showing you that this is Annie's giant that she has to conquer. She's on the road with her little sister Ellie, and they're going to Salt Lake City. Ellie's fiance has gotten transferred, and so now Ellie's not going to be living in the same town with Annie anymore. And they're taking this final road trip. Annie's bringing her. And Annie's a bitch the whole time. First they're getting along, but they get in the hotel room and they start talking about their mom, and both of them get mad. Apparently the little sister Ellie has received a letter from the mom, and she called the mom once in response to the letter. It's not a reconnection, but Annie's pissed about this. And they actually both accuse each other of being their mother at one point because they're both being nasty. But Annie's pretty nasty and says, I think about New York City without you in it, and I get happy because I don't have to call you and pretend I care anymore. We can just live our lives separate and quit pretending like we actually care about each other. The sister's not willing to let the fight ruin their time, though. They're asleep in the bed, but there's a fantasy movie on the TV, I have to say, and the little sister loves fantasy and Annie hates fantasy. The little sister pretends to be an elf and says, "You have to take care of your sick and elfin sister," which is foreshadowing. Okay, so, and the show that's on the TV is a show called Hawk the Destroyer, which is also foreshadowing. So they fall asleep, and at one point, Annie rolls over and puts her arm around her little sister. And Annie was being mean to Ellie the whole time. So when you see her hold her sister right there in that moment, you're thinking, if I was a sister, I wouldn't even let Kid get off on me. But you see that they're sisters and they really care about each other and they're close. Once you watch the show and you see it again, the scene will rip your heart out. But anyway, it's just a simple her holding her sister. That's the one moment I think she kept taking that pill for. It's just to be next to her sister. Because the very next day they're on the road again. She's got this camera. And Ellie wants to take pictures of the road trip to remember the road trip, and Annie won't take a decent picture. She keeps taking a picture of her armpit. It's very fucking annoying. And she's used up almost all 24 of the pictures just taking a picture of her armpit. But they're on the road, and she says, "If you want to take a picture of both of us, I'll do it, okay? Hold the wheel. I'll get the picture. You ready? 3, 2, and takes a picture of her armpit once." And Ellie's like, "She's doing that, and it's fucking funny." And the whole time they're arguing at each other, you see a truck coming, and it swerves from his lane into their lane. And right before it hits them, Annie tries to swerve, but it's too late. The truck smashes the little sister's side of the truck. The truck goes over the sidebar beam. It hits a couple of times on the top of this cliff. Annie flies out, lands on top of the cliff. The truck goes off the cliff and crashes way at the bottom. You see the car on fire and everything else. The sister's obviously dead, and Annie lived. Annie wakes up from this A-pill experience crying again, and you're wondering, what the fuck would you want to relive that over and over for? Are you fucking losing it or something? I mean, Jesus Christ. So that's your introduction to Owen and to Annie. That is my breakdown, complete recap, and thoughts on Maniac episode 1 and 2. The Chosen One, and Windmills. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10, and you'll get the rest of the breakdowns for this. I'm going to keep making them. This has been Twin Perspective. I'm Joe, and I will see you in the trees.